Hello, Tabitha here. Recently, I got these cake colors from Holbein in my last Holbein order. And I thought we would swatch them out, play with them, see how opaque they actually are, if they're closer to a gouache or they're closer to a watercolor. So let's get a little swatch sheet and see what they look like. Today I'm going to be on the Meeden hot pressed cotton watercolor paper. Really nice watercolor paper. They actually sent that to me and I truly love it. The palette is kind of unusual. It is a metal top and a plastic underneath, and the circles actually kind of like clip in and they kind of unhook themselves. So I don't know how good this palette is actually going to work. The names are on the center there. They're all labeled in English as well. And then it comes with a little tube of the opaque white. So we'll test out all of that. Let's get going. First up, we have Carmine. And I did not pre-wet these. We'll just see how they wet. And they feel kind of gouache-like, more so than like a watercolor. I put a line through each one of these swatches so we can see how opaque they actually are. I still can see the line quite clearly through that. Let me just get a little bit more. We'll see if... No, we're going to be able to see that completely through there. I thought they were actually going to be more opaque. I mean, they have opacity, but I'd consider that one definitely more semi-opaque. And I'm using a square brush today, a Skoda Reserva number 10. I thought it'd be easier to pick up these paints in these type of pans, but we will see. Then we'll go ahead with the Vermilion. These almost feel, the actual feel of picking them up feels a lot like the Caran D'ache gouache. The pans, they feel like that. So we might have to get those out and compare them. Yep, I can see. They are definitely opaque, but I can definitely see those lines through it. And this palette, I think they have a 24. This is the 12 of their opaque cakes, I guess they call them. They call them cakes. This is deep yellow. Definitely a gouache feel. The colors are nice and vivid. We'll have to see how they dry down. Making sure I get enough. My water is getting filthy really fast. Yeah, it's fogging those lines that are on them. Then we have lemon. These also feel kind of like kids' paints. They almost have a slight, I don't want to say chalk, but yeah, kind of like a chalk, little bit of a feel. And we'll see if these move in water at all. Holbein paints in general don't really move in water. They're kind of like the opposite side of the thing than like a core. Vermilion. They do re-wet nice and easy. This definitely looks like a phthalo. Does seem to have a little more body to it. We'll see if these look streaky as well. That one looked a little streaky. Let me just make sure it's not my error. We'll just give it a tiny bit more. There, that might be a little better. Might be my fault. Light green. I am sloppy with these today. It's kind of pretty transparent though. Let's do a little black. This is where I'd actually want to see a lot of the opacity. It's nice and dark. Yeah, that's actually quite beautiful, quite dark. Burnt sienna. This one seems to have a little bit more opacity than some of the ones up above. You can still see the line, but it tends to have a little bit more thickness to it. Burnt umber. I tried to move my lighting, so hopefully you're not getting too much glare from the wet paints on the swatches. Now this one doesn't feel as thick as the burnt sienna. This one's got a little more transparency to it. Yellow ochre. This one tends to be kind of opaque in lots of brands. So let's see how it looks. And it is pretty opaque. Feels more like the burnt sienna. A little more gouache-like. These paints definitely feel heavy. They do not feel light on their feet. I know that's a weird term, but some paints just have more of a pull or more of a weight to them. Like the particles are a different size, or there's more load of pigment in that space of amount of paint. I don't know if that makes sense at all. Cobalt blue. You can see how vibrant these are though. Quite beautiful. And this one has a good coverage. A little bit transparent, but not half as much as the ones above it. And I'm going to actually go over these with the second coat now that the pans have been woken up, and we'll see if that gives us more of a gouache-like look. Then we have our ultramarine here. And ultramarine seems to have a good transparency to it. All right, I'm going to let those dry for a second. We're going to go over it with a second coat and see if these get a little more opaque. All right, let's go ahead and see. Now I did squirt them a little bit, get them all juiced up. And see if, nope, still very transparent, even with a couple of layers on that one. They're quite potent colors. The water is really, really not looking good. Let me just show you. It's really dark. And it was fresh when I started. Usually the water isn't quite so. That one covered a little bit better. Yeah, I might have to just go get clean water because this water is not even cleaning the brush from these at all. All right, let me try that yellow a little bit again. And nope, no additional coverage. Yeah, I'm amazed at it. Really sticks to the brush. This really sticks to the brush. A lot more like a gouache would. Now that one came out quite opaque there. A lot more opaque on that one as well. The black, we're not going to be able to see too much of anything because the first coat was quite dark. Same thing I think for the burnt sienna. Now it's only been a couple minutes and these paints are already starting to dry up. It's like they really soak in the water. And all of them seem to have a little bit more opacity, but nowhere near some gouaches. All right, I'm going to move those out of the way and we're going to play and see if these mix up. All right, let's see how they mix up or play in water at all. Let's get a little water down here. Ooh, that spread a lot more than I thought it was going to. It's actually quite nice. Yeah, it's moving. It's moving a lot. And that mixes really easily into a beautiful purple. Let's go ahead and take a little. Yeah, these blend quite nicely. You can make quite a few colors out of this palette very easily. I always love to see how the colors play. We're not making anything that's monumental here. Some of them move better than others. That Carmine, I think, moved the best out of all of them. But you can see it is flaring out. And they do layer fine. Those second layers that I put on the swatches are almost dry. We'll take a look at them in a minute. But these really soak up the water. I am using quite a bit of water, and they really, really like to there's some really pretty colors going on in there. Yeah, I think you can make quite a few colors. Very easily out of this palette. I don't know exactly how I'm going to use it. I think it might be kind of nice if there's like a flower in something, a piece that you're making, and you need a little opacity on the top. I'd consider these a little more opaque than opaque watercolors. I'd consider them, and they feel like a gouache, but they're a very transparent gouache. That's how I would consider them, a very transparent gouache. So we're going to go ahead. I have my Caran D'ache. These are those gouache ones that are in the little pans. I just put them in the separate tin. And let's see how a couple of those look compared to these. So this is about the equivalent of the Carmine. And let's go ahead and put this one right next to it. The colors are just a tad different, but they're almost identical in the feel, in the opacity. Let's go ahead and try like their ultramarine here. Compared to the Holbein Ultramarine. The colors, like I said, are slightly different, but that's true from any brand to brand. Let's try their bright green. Should have gotten a bigger piece of paper. And to these, this bright green. Now, obviously the color is different, but the transparency, the amount of transparency is almost dead on. So I would say if you have these, you don't need the Holbein ones. They're extremely similar. The feel of them, the transparency of them, everything. Even the color selection. There's a couple of more here, a couple of different colors, but overall, they're extremely, and I bet if you got the 24 set, you would have even more colors this way. They are so similar. And they look very similar on the paper as well. Let's try something like both of theirs. Brown. That's the Holbein, the umber, and Let's try the Caran D'ache. Caran D'ache is a little more opaque in that color. And they water out about the same too. Well, that's a very little ugly swatch tester there, but we did get to feel them and see them, and I would definitely say, yeah, if you have these, you don't need these, or vice versa. They're extremely similar. The colors are very close in what they choose to put in each of the palettes. I know these come in a 24 set, so if you wanted to have more color variety, I think they're great for like a travel or you know, because they close up, and if you wanted something opaque and really simple to carry. That the Caran D'ache, I actually put this in one of these little tins because that tin took up a lot of room. I have all my other dried gouaches in it. I have a video on that. So let's go ahead, let's just tear off this tape. We're not worried about a monumental picture here. I just didn't want it to move around on me. The colors are absolutely beautiful and vivid though. Let's go ahead and move that off to the side. And you know what, we'll just bring this in. I'm still in my kind of makeshift area here, so I don't have a ton of room. They still got a couple of wet spots, but we can pretty much see that's just from the last couple of swatches. The tape pull is such a satisfying thing. I was a little sloppy today. I apologize, but sometimes I just like to get my hands in there. And I'm never afraid to get my hands dirty. It's like the best part. Alright, there is a couple of little damp spots on there at the end, but the black is a beautiful black, really nice and opaque. You can see with a couple of coats, a few of these get a little deeper. Let me see. You can see the lines that I placed through all of these really easily, whereas, and on these, but on the rest of them, they pretty well covered. This one you can still see through even the second coat. Well, these are going to be fun to play with. I think they'll go in one of my travel kits just when I want to grab something out as a topper. And I hope you had a little fun today, saw something that you might want, not want, or anything like that. And I'll leave the links in the description in case you're interested. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.